If you're watching this channel, it's because you don't enjoy watching the world squander what Christendom built, but you want to do your part. And chances are you've heard me mention a great means by doing just that. Email made by and for Catholics. Check out fidei.email. That's FIDEI.email. Built for Catholic individuals, families, organizations, and groups. They're private, secure, and of course, they're Catholic. And they're offering 2 months off on your first year for an annual subscription if you enter the coupon code Return to Tradition without spaces. That's the name of this channel, without spaces, at checkout.
The ongoing saga of the Synod on Synodality, this permanent now meeting of meetings in the church to talk about how the laity feel, and that seems to be resulting in procedural changes to the church that are going to have massive consequences for how the church is run and how doctrine is determined, is overshadowing something else, something called the German synodal way. Longtime viewers of this channel know that I have covered that story, and it's a weird story because the Germans have had their own sort of synodal process going on since 2019. Yes, for 5 years now. And it mirrors in every way everything going on in the broader Synod of Synodality. They have openly advocated for changing the James Martin sin into being acceptable to the church. They have openly advocated for deaconesses and the governing of the church by laity and all sorts of other things we're seeing coming out of the broader synod. And yet Rome has taken a hostile stance to the German synodal way. Their admonition is don't do this. That's not what they're telling them. They're saying don't do what you're doing without the rest of the church. They want the church united on these things and not the Germans to go and do their heresies without the rest of the Vatican and the rest of the Catholic Church going with them. It's all a very bizarre situation. And so what makes this all the more interesting is we have a interesting report coming from a LifeSite News reporter who has gotten the scoop on this, and it's going to set us up nicely for what we're talking about here. So from Mr. Michael Haynes reporting on Twitter, just in, German bishops and Vatican issue statement saying day of meetings on synodal way was, quote, positive and constructive with, quote, regular exchange between two sides promised and next meeting before summer. Bishops to form synodality in line with Vatican II and Synod on Synodality and go to Rome for approval. End quote. What does that mean? It means the Germans are submitting to Rome, which normally would be, you would think, is a good thing. And here, I guess it is. It makes little difference to me whether they embrace the same heresies Rome is promoting or not on their own or in union with Rome. That doesn't really matter much to me. But this is all very interesting that they're going to get them to submit. This has been an ongoing project between Rome and the German bishops since 2019, when they started talking about going their own way on this. And this all sets up something interesting. A bishop named Bishop Elenganti has been speaking on this publicly and gotten no attention. Not just the German synodal way. Here he's talking about the Synod on Synodality more broadly. And so I have his full short letter for you here. There has been no English language reporting on this, so I had to go and translate this thing myself using an online translation tool. Let me know if you want the English text of this. I'll put it on my website at returntotradition.org if you do. So here we go. Here is a bishop, one of the good ones from Germany, pointing out the danger of not just the synodal way, but the Synod on Synodality more broadly. Synodalism and Committee Catholicism, an address by Bishop Marian Elenganti. In my own experience, every bishop sits on 10 to 20 committees, councils, conferences, forums, committees, commissions, working groups, specialist groups, presidia, associations, etc., etc. In these groups, the same business and topics are negotiated and discussed to a large extent in ever-changing compositions. In addition, the bishop has many meetings, church services, visitations, and much more. All in all, an overkill of appointments. Question: when does a bishop actually decide anything in himself in his own responsibility before God for the diocese entrusted to him? In most cases, he follows majority decisions that are made in the aforementioned committees or in the back office of the donors, at least in Switzerland. All these bodies are largely mixed. Lay people, clergy, experts, women and men sit on them and exert their influence here. Nevertheless, the laity still feel that they do not have a say in decision-making. Now, this synodal apparatus is being further inflated. The bishops rush from appointment to appointment, from meeting to meeting like a hamster on a wheel. The structures keep them on their toes. The players in this Catholicism of committees spends hours of the day at meeting table. A glance at the agendas is enough to convince you that I am speaking from experience and not exaggerating. So now, in addition to the existing councils, synodal councils are on the agenda, in which lay people are also to receive or exercise church leadership powers without distinction. A set of rules is being worked on diligently that is already foreseeably undermining the sacramental structure of the church and its leadership. Assertions to the contrary are unconvincing. The rules of procedure of the last synod speak against this. Is this synodality apostolic? No. It is not. Are we still on the ground of the recent council, meaning Vatican II? No, we are not. We remember, in the dogmatic constitution Lumen Gentium, the Second Vatican Council teaches about bishops. As members of the College of Bishops and legitimate successors of the apostles, they are bound by Christ's foundation and precept to care for the universal church. The council teaches about bishops that they preside in God's place over the flock of which they are shepherds, as teachers in instruction, as priests in sacred worship, as servants in leadership. The council teaches about the bishops that, quote, by divine appointment they have taken the place of the apostles, as pastors of the church. Whoever hears them hears Christ, and whoever despises them despises Christ and him who sent Christ. The council teaches about bishops that episcopal ordination also confers the ministries of teaching and leadership along with the office of sanctification. Translated into canon law, only clerics can receive ministries for the exercise of which ordination or ecclesiastical authority is required. The council teaches about bishops that only they are authentic teachers endowed with the authority of Christ, and that they order the administration of the sacraments with their authority. The council teaches about bishops that they lead the particular churches assigned to them as representatives and envoys of Christ by advice, encouragement, and example, but also by authority and sacred power, and that this power which they exercise personally in the name of Christ belongs to them as their own ordinary and direct power. The council teaches that bishops, together with the Pope and under his authority, continue the work of Christ, the eternal shepherd, throughout the ages. Therefore, through the Holy Spirit communicated to them, the bishops have become true and authentic teachers of the faith, priests, and pastors. The council teaches about the bishops that bishops chosen from the various regions of the earth effectively assist the supreme power of the church in a council called the Synod of Bishops. The council upholds the essential, not gradual, difference between the common priesthood of the faithful and the priesthood of bishops and priests. The council teaches about the laity that they are called to collaborate with the apostolate of the hierarchy, and can be called by the hierarchy to certain ecclesial ministries that serve spiritual ends. On the basis of these guidelines, canon law states that only those who have received sacred ordination are qualified to assume the power of leadership, which exists in the church by divine appointment and which is also called jurisdictional power, while lay people may participate in the exercise of this power in accordance with canon law. However, this participation does not mean that the bishop's authority to lead the church is extended to the laity through a kind of separation of powers in the leadership of the church by virtue of an egalitarian right to vote, who sit together with the bishops in the synodal councils and decide together with the latter on an equal footing at the meeting table, majority decision-making. This not only abandons the ground of the council, but also undermines the apostolicity and sacramentality of the office of leadership, and neutralizes it through a kind of synodal parliamentarianism, so-called separation of powers. The consequences are foreseeable. This is well known in the Eastern Church. Only in the Latin West is the fire still burning. I do wish that Bishop Elengante would have talked about the consequences in the Eastern Church for this synodal decision-making that they've got going on over there that they are trying to impose on the Latin West. Because oftentimes we see Catholics in the Latin West saying that they are going to go either east to the Eastern rites, which is your right as a Catholic if you so wish, although modernism is still a problem there too. After all, they did go along with the council in the East. But also, you see Catholics saying they want to go Eastern Orthodox, which is weird because many of the errors promulgated by Francis come from the Eastern Orthodox. So I don't know what's going to happen when you go there and you see communion for divorced and remarried or whatever else that bothers you. But the only thing they haven't embraced is James Martin's sin, but I'm sure they'll get there eventually. The one thing that I wish you would have talked about is the consequences of this sort of decentralized decision making. Because this will really only have one consequence in the Latin West, where in the Latin West, the Catholic Church has done an abysmal job of teaching the basics of the faith. We're now at something like 17% of Catholics go to Mass every Sunday, or most Sundays of the month, in the United States. In other countries, French traditional Catholic would probably, for example, hear those numbers and go, man, I wish France had those numbers. Probably get the same thing in England or Germany or anywhere else. They would love to have 17% going to Mass consistently. That's where we are in America. And it has been continuing to slide and slide and slide. Fewer and fewer Catholics going to Mass regularly. And I don't even believe those numbers. And the reason I don't believe those numbers is because the Catholic Church has a very strange policy. And I don't know if it's written down anywhere or if it's just the accepted practice through a non-written policy. If somebody apostatizes or becomes an actual schismatic, meaning they become a Protestant, guess what happens? They're still counted on the rolls of their parish. You have to pretty much move heaven and earth to get off the rolls of that parish. And the church will still count you as a Catholic because you are Catholic by your baptism. And so we get these 1.4 billion number for Catholics out there, but it's not accurate. We know that the Protestant churches in the United States, the rock and roll parishes, if you want to call them that, where their idea of worship is listening to a guy give a speech for an hour and then you get a bunch of rock music. Their pews, if you want to call them that, are filled with former Catholics. And it's because of this lack of catechesis. Why would you go to a rock concert to be spiritually fed when you can receive the Eucharist? And we know, statistically, most Catholics believe the Eucharist is a symbol. They don't believe in the real presence. And they believe that's what the church teaches. Hence why you get many Catholics leaving and going elsewhere, because it all doesn't matter, and the Catholic Church asks too much if it's just all the same. That badly catechized group of laity are going to be the ones getting power in this new synodal church. Where do you think that's going to lead? I'm glad to see this bishop standing up, but I'm curious what you have to say about this, so let me know in the comments, please, and hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.